But what we fail to realize is that the world is simply made up of countries, states, cities, communities, families, and individuals. So if we truly want to change the world, let's start by becoming our true selves. Welcome to In Treatment.
Welcome to In Treatment, where we're going to diagnose the common illnesses in love and relationships. With over 10 years of experience in marital, family, and individual counseling, we're going to give you real-life stories on how we diagnose, cure, and treat common illnesses.
Dr. Van Brown, teacher and counselor at Revelation Church, also author of Love Symptoms. This is my beautiful, exquisite, loving wife.
Amen. I'm Dr. Lolita Brown, also counselor of Revelation Church and financial advisor. And we want to give honor and thanks to the visionary of this platform, Dr. Lovie L. Elias. Amen.
I think it's important to let them know the reason for the show. All over the world, we see hearts are being broken. People don't want to enter into a relation again. And I've come to the conclusion that if you have the wrong information about something, therefore your conclusion automatically will be wrong also.
Yes.
So the nature of this show is to tell the truth about love, where it came from, and how it's successfully supposed to be given.
That's good. That's good. I think we should start with telling our love story.
I think I should tell it because we don't have enough time in the day to go into it. So I met my wife at a financial firm, and I went into there wanting to seek advice on how to be better financially and also a potential job as a financial advisor. Once I got there, I had to do my financial plan, and the person that was assigned to doing it with me couldn't do it, so they assigned Lolita. So, long story short, the person, we have to go into the field, and the person that we're supposed to do our financial plan with in terms of showing me how to do it, she canceled. And so we sat in the car, and we literally talked for 2 hours about
2 hours.
Plans, motivation, purpose, etc. And that was the beginning spark of something beautiful.
I remember that during that 2 hours, you literally were giving me information about what type of man I should be looking for to marry. Remember, you gave me like the 6 steps that God gave man before they go into a relationship. And I remember you telling me these things, like when you're looking for someone you want to marry, he needs to be in God's image. He needs to be in his work. He needs to be able to cultivate and wash you in the word and all of these different things. And I remember sitting there looking at you like, are you the man? That God has sent to me, because you had so much information about what I should be looking for. But I was like sitting there like, am I looking for you or the information? And so that was like our love story in the beginning. And I think that with this platform, the biggest thing that we want to do is be transparent, because we learned so much within our relationship that I think that it has become a bridge that we have used to help restore and build other relationships.
So let's not waste any time. Let's just get right into it. So the topic today is going to be the misdiagnosis of love. I mean, think about it. And we're going to use our real story in order to show you how it doesn't matter how much two people. See, all over the world, and I've been set up on blind dates. I'm sure you have people, I'm sure those of you watching have been set up on blind dates.
Yeah.
We've come to the conclusion just because this person is a good person, this is a good person, we automatically think these two good people make a relationship.
That's good.
But that's so far from the truth. Therefore, because you're not marrying a person, you're marrying their history.
Yes.
So
good.
even though this person is in front of me, there's past histories that are speaking for them. So when we're talking about the misdiagnosis of love, the first thing we want to go into is family history of illness.
Wow.
Let's start
Okay.
there. I come from a family, a huge family on my father and mother's side. Doing the preparation for writing the book Love Symptoms, I studied and talked to my uncles and aunts about what their father and mother were like, because I wanted to understand why my father communicated to my mother the way she did. He was very meticulous in the way he protected the family and the way he worked and the way he provided. But he was really limited on his aspiration and affection and love towards my mother. And when I did the research, I realized that his father was the same way to my grandmother.
Wow.
So what we fail to realize is we're passing on family history of love, and we're passing it on as this is a beautiful gem, but it's actually a dead history that is delaying the children that we say we love.
That's good, because I was the complete opposite. My mom showered me with love and affection. I mean, I couldn't leave the house without her giving me hugs and kisses and telling me how great I am and how I'm going to do something great in this world. And so automatically coming into a relationship, I automatically thought that that's what I would receive.
Right.
You know, and then I meet you, who had the complete opposite, where you didn't even see your parents hug or kiss or even mention the word "I love you," and then we meet each other, and now we're trying to figure out how to become one, how to love each other, how to grow, right?
Right, but this is what relationships, now family, please pay attention to this.
That's good.
Because each relationship is a mirror. And so it means that this person holds a mirror up to you and simply say, become. She had no structure because her mother was a hippie type love, you can do no wrong, no structure, no curfew. I came from structure and curfew, but I didn't have the affection and love. So here it is, we're two people who needed the things that we both have, but at the same time, because her love symptoms was love, affection, and all I knew how to do was structure, she couldn't receive my love. And because she couldn't receive my love, there was a misinformation being transferred. And so we couldn't hear each other. Two good people, but we couldn't hear each other simply because the love language was not being deposited the way we were accustomed to receiving it.
That's so good.
So the first thing we have to understand in family history of illness, we have to first understand what they gave to us, how they gave it to us, and is it successful?
Yes.
And if it's not successful, there are certain things that our parents gave to us that we have to leave behind in order to be successful in the next relationship.
That's
So,
good. I think we diagnosed that our issue coming together was that we were brought up in two different love symptoms, so to say, love ways.
two different cultures of love.
Yeah, two different cultures of love. So then what would you say, or what was our cure? What did we do to actually help get on track?
Well, the first thing we have to do is acknowledge what is wrong. And the first thing that was wrong was we weren't speaking for each other. Our history was speaking for each other. You couldn't receive my correction and my love and my structure simply because you were too accustomed to receiving the old thing.
That's true, that's true.
And so once we understood that, hey, maybe I do need structure. maybe I don't need correction. Maybe I do need to be better in these areas. And I understood maybe I could be more affectionate. Maybe I could be more giving with my words.
Yes.
I realized that love is not just delegated to correction. There is sentimentality that comes along with it. And I realized that I didn't have the whole package. And so we first have to admit is I don't have it all.
Oh, that's good.
And once we admit that we don't have it all, then it makes sense for us to humble ourselves and seek wisdom, correction, and understanding on someone who has it. They could successfully teach us how to give it.
That's so good, because I feel like in our journey, we didn't have someone there. And we had a lot of bumping into each other and into the wall. I was pretty stubborn. I can be honest and transparent. I had a lot of insecurities and a lot of different things that I was like, man, if I could just get it right. But in the moment, I just felt like I was all that in a bag of chips.
You couldn't tell nothing.
You couldn't tell me I was doing anything wrong. I remember we would argue for like 2 hours straight, mostly me because Van don't argue, but I was trying to get my point across. I was trying to let him know that this is what's going on, this is what's wrong.
Which brings me to my next point, overdosage.
Yes.
See, there is a problem. When every human being, every child has to have the right amount of stimulation of correction and love in order to be a fully realized adult. But when that child is flooded and overwhelmed with love, 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 you can do no wrong with no correction, they are overdosed in these things, and therefore no one in society can correct them. So here it is, now they're merging lives with someone else, and that person comes from a source of correction. So every single thing they say, they will be dismissed simply because my parents worship me. How dare you say that I'm not enough? How dare you say I need to be better? So I think what was missing was, because you were not corrected enough, it didn't allow truth to enter you.
Yes.
So it doesn't matter how you felt, and it doesn't matter how truthful it was.
True.
If you didn't want to hear it, it wasn't happening.
Right.
So
That's true.
and then also there's the other side of it. There are people who are malnourished,
Yes.
meaning they wasn't given enough love. And they weren't given enough correction either.
Oh, that's
Those people tend to be the candidate to be victimized and to be bullied for domestic violence, to be in relationships where they're literally a doormat, simply because the first persons who deemed to love them didn't do so. They didn't give them a healthy blueprint on what loves look like.
Yeah.
And because we didn't receive a healthy blueprint, we went out into the world and we took whoever was willing to take us.
That's so good.
And we don't realize that there is a standard that we're supposed to adhere to. So here it is, we stay in relationships where we're being pummeled, we're being dismissed, we're being vilified, we're being taunted. And the whole reason for this relationship is for the other individual to get their emotional dump off. And that person will stay in that relationship as long as the other person would have them, simply because they were never validated, they were never firm, they were never adored, they were never taught that your value, your opinion, your thoughts matter also. What do you think?
You know what I appreciate about you the most is that even in our toughest times in our relationship, you were consistent and never giving up. You know, you've always was being the example of what God, oh, thank you, sweetie. You were always the example of what God called you to be, you know? I always tell people that there's a few people that I know that if they had a picture of love in the dictionary, you would be that picture, because you live it, you breathe it. Whenever we had a scenario or a situation, you showed up in love. You know, you loved me beyond my flaws, beyond my weaknesses and everything. And I think that it's important when people are building a relationship together that they have someone that understands what it means to love. So can you explain a little bit about what does it mean to love someone? What is the definition of love?
Great point. And what brings us to our next point, wrong medication. Sometimes, like I said, there is a standard that has been set on how to love.
Yes.
Whether you believe in God or not, it doesn't matter. There's something in our DNA that is hardwired, and we're set to love this specific way. And if we don't, it wreaks havoc on our lives.
Wow.
Let me give you an example. There are certain individuals that we've counseled before where when they hear the word love, it relates to violence. Because in their household, the people who said they loved them all put their hands on them.
Oh, that's good, yeah.
So it's the wrong medication, because love was supposed to be this beautiful, vibrant and vessel. It's the most powerful word on earth. This word can actually reduce you to rubble, or it could build you up to be a monument at the same time, depending on how you use it.
Yeah.
So here it is. In this home, every person that says they love this girl or this boy put their hands on them, dismiss them, taunt them. But here it is, now, years and decades later, they're getting into a relationship, and someone who has the right concept and understanding of love says, I love you. But they cringe because every single person that said they loved them put their hands up. So now they're getting ready to feel the blows of what's coming.
Wow.
Because love in their mind means violence. So if we don't have the right concept in our mind on what love is, so let's just tell the truth. Love is a giving vessel. Love simply means I am committed to loving you for the rest of my life, anticipating your needs and meeting them, expecting nothing in return. See, but because we have the wrong attitude about love, we say we want to love that person, but we actually have a hidden agenda. We only want to love that person because we can't wait for our needs to be met.
That's good.
When a woman says she loves a man, already in the back of her mind, she's thinking of the wig. She already have the bridesmaids' dresses and everything is already set. The children, the picket fences, and all these beautiful. She's looking at her life and what she's receiving.
Yes.
But she fails to understand that in loving this man, I need to know his need, his functions, his likes, his dislikes.
That's good.
I have to love him and study him. And when I study him, in the genuine pursuit of knowing him and giving him his needs, those things simply will be added unto me. See, our Father said something great. It says, seek ye first the kingdom, and everything else will be added unto you. Our Father is showing us how to love. He said, no, seek the deep divine truth that's already wrapped inside.
Yes.
So when you seek to be a natural giver, everything else will be received back unto you. But we manipulate giving. It's not giving, it is an investment. And all over the world, people are pissed off because they didn't get a healthy return on their investment. But it's because they came with the wrong attitude. They had the wrong medication. They had the wrong concept, the wrong understanding. They had the wrong approach. And because of that, everything was dismissed because truth was not there.
That's so good and so true. I feel like I was a victim of that.
And so was I.
Yes, so thank God for growth.
Because when I came into the relationship, I've always had this information. I was blessed before our great spiritual father, Dr. Lovie Elias. I was mentored also by a great man called Dr. Miles Monroe.
Yes.
And he taught me this. But there's a difference between knowing it intellectually and it's sitting in you.
Yes.
And little by little, as we started to date and our relationship grew, those things no longer was intellectually in my mind. They started to seep in me. And because they started to seep in me, I started to adopt a culture of what love is. And so every time I felt that you were disappointing to me, he told me that you're supposed to come closer and absorb the blow. Because the Bible says, before the foundation of the world, the Son was slain. So it means that God knew that Adam was going to drop the ball, and he gave him an insurance proof before he dropped it. So it means that love is supposed to predict the failure and meet the need before you need it. We don't understand this love thing.
So good.
We really don't. It's really, listen to me, if we could get the blueprint of love correct, there will be no broken homes, there will be no violent boys, there will be no lost women, simply because if love is administered the way it's supposed to, it will give a healthy balance to that person. And because of that balance, their worth will be intact and they won't be candidate for the wolves.
That's so good. That's so good. So what would you say is some treatments or cure that we went through? When was the last time we even had an argument? We have to give them the cure, the treatment to how we did it, because we haven't had an argument, and I don't know when.
And think about it. Remember, in the beginning, we would argue for like 4 or 5, 6 hours.
Yes, yes.
So how did you go from 6 to basically nothing? And it's not about not having arguments, because arguments are healthy as long as you know how to problem solve in your arguments. I think the first thing we did was we had to acknowledge that something was wrong.
Yes.
You wanted to get your point across because you feel like you weren't being heard. And see, I had to learn that if I am loving you, I can love you the way I would want someone to love me.
Right.
I had to love you the way you wanted to be loved. And then trickle in little sprinkles of my style.
Yes.
So the minute I knew that you needed love, affection, verbal stimulation, and all that great stuff, I studied you and learned this is what she likes. Once you started to receive that, then I realized when I gave the correction, you were more likely to receive it because you were getting so much of what you want. I think a lot of times when we come into a relationship, we just want to give the way we want to give it because this is what we've been doing our whole lives and it's comfortable. But when you're deciding to love someone else, you have to give it to them the way they want it to be received. So that was the first thing we learned. We had to learn boundaries, likes, dislikes. I needed to study you. I needed to know the moments. I know that your father passed away at 6 months, when you were 6 months. So I know that father dynamic was not there. And so I created things that will give you that feeling even though you couldn't capture those moments. So I remember creating a father-daughter dance and you had such a great time. So what love does is love looks at all of the missing parts and try to fill it. But we're so busy trying to get what we want, we fail to meet the needs of the other individual. So what we did so successfully is we met the need of each other. We loved each other on our own terms. And then we sprinkled parts of ourselves in it. And then another thing too, we came up with the 5-minute rule because like I said, it is good to have disagreement. Okay, all right. We'll wait. Okay.
I think
well,
we should wait.
okay. Well, this is some good diagnosing. And then another thing too is listening. We've forgotten how to listen. We listen with the intent of giving a rebuttal back. So we're not really listening. We're listening. We're just waiting till that mouth shut, and so we could speak. But the true art of listening is the removal of one's opinion. I need to remove my opinion or thoughts because there's a possibility I could actually be learning something by what he or she said. We have to move our ego and our pride aside to really, really intentionally listen to what's being said. And the more we become active and cognitive listeners, then all of a sudden we'll be able to really meet the proper dosage and the communication, because what we fail to realize as men, women love communication.
Yeah.
Women love conversations.
Yes.
Once we know the need of the individual, then we don't need to ask questions.
Yeah.
We just feel the need.
Yes.
And so you have to study who you are with, their style, their makeup, their likes, their dislikes, and then more importantly, their traumas. And how do you help them along the way with their traumas?
That's good.
Because the most effective way into your heart, what I learned was learning your top 5 traumas, the things that stalked you, the things that you got past, but you still remembered, or the things that you're still dealing with that you need assistance with. And so once we sat down and we started to talk about those things, then all of a sudden I saw another side of you that I didn't see, and then I was able to help, and we were able to hold up a mirror to each other and say, okay, these are the parts. Let me be gentle and carefully take those parts off.
Yes.
You're not judging the individual. You're helping the individual. And you're very, very cautious with your words when you're dealing with the trauma aspect of it.
That's
So I
so
think
good.
that's what we did really great. It took us a while, but we
Yes.
got there.
We did.
Yeah,
Amen.
yeah.
You know, one of the things that, amen. One of the things that I want, our viewers to know is that I think it all was based off of a decision that we decided to love each other.
Right.
And so when you get into a relationship and you get into the pros and cons of that relationship, your decision has to stand long after you've had the joy and the chaos and all of the in-between, right? Because we always had that decision that we were going to be together, and we did whatever we can to continue to keep that decision. And so what I would say from a lot of our family history is that I personally, I'm the youngest of 10, and there's 6 girls and 4 boys. And I was the first to get married in my family. I saw a lot of men come into my, sisters' lives and leave. I remember saying to myself one time that I would never have kids because I never saw none of the men that gave, that my sister had children with. I never saw them stay. They all became single mothers, and just seeing that grow up and being there to help them and support them, I was like, I never want to have children because I never want to be a single mother. That's not something I want to do, And I remember telling myself that at a very young age.
Right.
I remember, them.
Wrong medication.
Wrong medication, right? I remember saying, that there's no good man out there. Some of you guys probably feel that way, right?
Wrong medication again.
Like, we're all the good men, right?
Right.
I remember telling myself that, that they would come, like men will come in your life and use you. And this was just all stuff that I saw in my family, that I picked up and I just fed myself. And I remember when I met you and I was, just really studying you and getting to know you and seeing if you wanted children and, your history and things like that. And it was so refreshing to know that, like, you were a man after God's heart.
I try my best. No, it was a process simply because when we're talking about family history, all I saw my father did, he worked consistently. I watched him get up early every morning, and like clockwork, he was a creature of habit.
Yes.
He would warm his car, made a pot of coffee, take a shower, get dressed, and he was out the door from 6 a.m. and I wouldn't see him until like 6 p.m. And when he got home, he would make sure he would do all of us our chores together, made sure I did my chores. He was a creature, making sure that he was a man of structure. That's the way his father taught him.
Yes.
But the intimate part with my mother, their relationship was distant. They didn't even sleep in the same bedroom because after my youngest sister, Nadia, I never saw intimacy. I never saw a kiss. I never saw, and so family history. I thought love was you communicated for the sake of the doings. It wasn't necessary to come with flowers. It wasn't necessary to say I love you, because that was my family history. But the things that I could do great, what my father taught me, was to provide and protect. So I could work like nobody's business. I could clean like, so even to this day,
he's an
my
excellent
wife
cleaner.
doesn't do any cleaning. I do all the laundry and everything, simply because I saw my father do that. But imagine if I saw my father love on my mother in an intimate and a stimulating way.
Yes. That's
So
good.
thank God that he gave me all of the other parts. He gave me the best of what he had.
Right.
And that's why we can't blame our parents. They only could give us the best of what they had, and then it's our job to see what they have given us and then build upon it. But if we waste time blaming and throwing, and I understand, I'm not minimizing anyone's pain, because some of us has come from some horror stories from the people who were supposed to be our first love, our parents. But we can't go any further into the success of ourselves if we first don't acknowledge that they just didn't have it to give.
That's true.
They just didn't have it to give. And my mother and my father, they were great, great men. And when my mother is still here, my father is left. But he was a great man. He gave us every single thing he had. And your mother talk about your mother history.
My mom, she grew up with her mother and father, but at a very young age, she had to, drop out of school to take care, because it was.
So did my mother.
Oh wow! I didn't know. Yeah, that is common. But she had to drop out of school to take care of her brothers and sisters, and she sacrificed so much to make sure that they were taken care of, and provided for. She went to school. She went to work, at a young age to just do those things. And she had a good example of a mother and father in the house. But I think that everything around that was something that kind of distract her in the way that she was able to raise her own children.
Right.
So, but my dad, like you mentioned earlier, he passed away when I was 6 months. And my mom, deciding to just stay a single parent and mostly deciding to just take care of 10 kids on her own, and that being difficult on its own, did her best with raising us, but there was always that male figure that was not present in my life, because my mom, kind of stepped in and tried to take on both roles.
Right. So another family history too. There's a lot of young women being raised in homes with no men. And when you don't have an intimate setting on what the doings of a man, his personality, his likes, his dislikes, now all of a sudden, decades later, you're meeting men for the first time and you have no clue what they do in their private dwelling. So it's uncomfortable. It's the same thing on the other side, men who are raised without the company and the brilliance of a woman. All of these things, if we don't have the history, and we have mishistory, meaning limited history on what success is, we're going to go into relationships paralyzed, and we think we're fine because we're sane, we have a functioning job, we could drive a car, everything looks right, my clothes are clean, my shoes are shine, but there's so much missing elements simply because there was a lot that I didn't know, simply because the people who raised me didn't have all of the evidence, and nor did I went to try and find it so I could be better. So the first thing we have to do with family history, we have to identify the things that they didn't have. I studied my father, I studied my mother. I saw the things that they were great at, and then I also saw the things that they were limited in. And the things that they were limited in, I gave it to myself. You actually could give to yourself what your parents couldn't give.
Wow, that's so good.
Yeah.
That's so good.
You actually can.
Yes.
Because, like yourself, you learned structure. You could have rebelled. You could have walked away. You said,
true.
okay, this is good for me. Let me. I learned, okay, it's very important for me to be affectionate because I can't be with you, my wife, and this is your culture. So I had to learn the best way to communicate those ideals, my affection, my love, my consideration. Now, every single time I have the opportunity to do it,
Yeah.
this is what betrays us. We think that it's a feeling. Oh, I have to wait for the feeling to come and then. But if I didn't grow up with this was not synced into my spirit from the very beginning. Remember, even social scientists say this. From the ages of 0 to 5 or 6 is where a child learned how to process information, the way of being in the world, the way they navigate, the way they make decisions. So if I didn't get that stimulation, then later on, these things are going to become foreign to me. So I couldn't wait until the feeling set in order to be loving to you. I had to decide that this is what my wife needs. Let me do it. So everything we do, love is a decision. It's a decision. And this is what I want our viewers to know. It's not about feelings. Love is not a feeling. When you go to Webster's Oxford Dictionary, it says, love is an intense feeling, passion towards something or someone. That is the biggest lie. Love is not a feeling. Love is a decision motivated by understanding the value. Imagine if I gave you, we went to the beach and I picked up a few seashells and we took it home.
Yes.
A week later, you're not going to be looking for those seashells because why? We went to the beach and we could go back and we got it for nothing. But this ring that I put on your finger,
Yes.
if you couldn't,
Yes.
this ring that I put on your finger, if you were to lose it for 5 minutes, you would go crazy. Why?
True.
Because you understand the value.
Yes.
The problem is we don't know the value of each other.
That is so good, doctor. So what would you say the prescription is for being able to understand love and being able to give it and receive it?
You first have to know who created it. If I want to know, you have a Mac computer, I have one. If I want to know the value of it
Yes.
and how successful it could be in my life, I can't talk to the computer. I have to talk to the inventor. The inventor gave us a manual, and it tells us all of the things it does, and it's so beautiful. It tells us even what happens if this thing malfunctions. There's a number that you call,
Yes.
and you could actually call, and they will replace it for free. We have to get back into our storehouse and talk to our Father about ourselves first.
That's good.
From there, then we have to understand what He has said about us, our value. We make the mistake, our value coming from people, past lovers who dismissed us, left us. And because of their dismissal of us, it reduced our value. We have grades that we're still haunted by. We've gotten some test scores that still haunts us to this day. We live in certain area codes that gives us a sense of worth or have no worth at all. Our bank account starts to speak for us and show our value.
That's good.
But we fail to realize that none of these things get to own and actually put a label on our worth. Our Father says you are worth God.
That's so good.
And
That's
that
so
has
good.
to be the full stop. Once you know that you are worth God, because when Jesus came to redeem man, God didn't send a cherubim, He didn't send a lion, He didn't send a tree. He sent Himself.
Wow.
So it means that we
So
are
good.
worth God.
Yes.
If we could sit on the value of that.
Yes.
Anytime a child is being born, let me give you another example. It says over 5 million to 6 million sperm are dashing towards the egg. Do you know who won out of 5 million?
Me.
That's you. That's you. That's every single one of you.
Yeah.
We all won So it means that there was a value placed on that seed from the very beginning. That's why you outran everybody else.
Yes.
But along the way,
too.
because of hurt, because of trauma, because of disappointments, we devalued ourselves. But the number one thing we can do is the minute you become complicit
Yes.
in the devaluing of self, it is pointless. You have to know your worth first.
That's so good.
You have to know your worth first, and it can't be by your area code, it can't be by your bank account, it can't
Sure.
be the who loved or did not love you. It has to come from a divine, knowing that from the foundation of the world, I sent you on earth to do a divine work, and after it's said and done, mankind is going to be better because of the purpose that you have permeated. And that is the only thing that should govern our value, nothing else.
Wow. Wow. Well, thank you for tuning into In Treatment. We will be back shortly with more information on how to diagnose, cure, and treat the common illnesses in your relationship.
And follow us on all social platforms. This is Dr. Van Brown.
And Dr. Lolita Brown.